Number two, let's talk about processing trauma and trauma recovery. I'm gonna take another sip of tea. I think as a psychologist, the more big concerns that I have for Reesa was how traumatized is she becoming because of this very traumatic experience? What is going to be the impact of this trauma for her? And what does trauma recovery look like? I even went so far as to think, would she have a diagnosis of PTSD following this? Let me just a disclaimer. Yes, I am a clinical psychologist, but I don't want you all to take what I say here and diagnose anybody in this series. I will be talking about speculations here, but I am not able to fully or formally diagnose anyone because I would need to do a diagnostic assessment, a psychological eval, and I don't even know these folks. So I'm literally just speculating based on information that I've got offline, and we can do that. But I just want to make sure you all are clear. I am not diagnosing anyone today. So again, going back to processing trauma and trauma recovery, could someone who went through what Reesa went through experience post-traumatic stress after? Absolutely. And even if it doesn't diagnostically rise to the level of post traumatic stress, could they experience some other mental health challenge related to trauma? Absolutely. There are other trauma related stress diagnoses in our DSM 5. The 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 book that many mental health professionals use to diagnose, and I would not be surprised if at this point Risa meets criteria for at least one of them, if not a trauma related stress disorder, but an anxiety disorder. There might even be some other mood disorder related to depression she might be meeting criteria for. But just like in the first point, the impact of the deception and the betrayal, that is all trauma. It was very traumatic. And she even expressed that she is still struggling with the mental and emotional effects of this. So, some things I wrote down here. Um, I wrote Reese's sharing of this story really highlights the importance of acknowledging and processing our personal experiences, even if they are painful. And I said that because when it comes to trauma recovery, for anybody who has ever been traumatized, and if you do ever receive any type of trauma intervention or trauma therapy, you know that a big part of that is telling your story, processing that event, whether you're doing it verbally through storytelling or whether you're doing it more somatically with your body. We really have to process what has happened to you. And in some way, I actually really appreciated Risa telling this story because it was a form of trauma therapy for her. And she even said it too. She said that she needed to release the weight of this, the heaviness that she has been feeling of keeping this to herself. Yes, she wanted to help somebody through her story, but also the process of telling your story, even when it's painful, helps you to process your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions behind it, and that can help you heal. That is why it is so important to tell our stories, our painful stories, our traumatic stories, because that is a form of processing. And part of trauma recovery is processing the traumatic event. That is not to say that everyone who has been through a trauma should get on TikTok and share their story because that might not be therapeutic for everybody. Many people need to do that in the safety of a therapy room or in the safety of a mental health professional. But for other people, they could be processing their trauma through journaling or telling their story online. And I think that's why it's so important for us to not judge her for what she did because she was doing this to help other women who might be in a similar situation later, but she also was doing it as part of her trauma recovery. I'm sure she feels a little bit better after doing this. Oh, y'all, I just deleted my notes. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. This was part of her recovery process. She eventually got to a point because you all know this all happened in 2020 and 2021, and she finally felt ready to tell her story in 2024. This was a part of her process, and it is a process because it means that it took her a few years to feel ready to do this, but she finally felt ready to do this, and now it has helped her. Okay. So let's see, what else do I want to say about trauma recovery? I what something else I wrote down is that this series likely sparked conversations around healthy coping, seeking support, and navigating and healing from trauma and recovery. And it absolutely did. I think for many people who have been in similar situations or just people who are watching, they really started to think about, okay, what does healing from trauma look like? What might that journey be like? And it also, again, I so appreciate her being honest because she helped us realize just because the trauma stops doesn't mean the effects of the trauma end. And I think that's where she's at. And I hope that she continues to work through that process because, yeah, Legion may not be messing with her no more. Yes, she's divorced. Yes, she's in a safe space. But the effect, the emotional, the mental toll that it has taken has not ended for her.